Yo, yo, what is good? Okay, don't adjust your screen. It is I, Rock, back in the place to be. All right, so it's been a bit of a journey over the last year. I've had to make some transitions, um, both just physically moving from one state to the next, from one state to another, and I guess a little bit reluctantly changing my job and career. Previously, I did work as a parole agent, adult parole agent, and now I'm working back in my original field, working with adolescents and juveniles. But I work now in a clinical environment, psychosocial to be exact. Um, I'm a little bit stabilized now. To work on that for some time because um, although I've done supervisor work in the past, each agency you work with, they have their own criteria, they have their own guidelines, they have their own mission and value statement, and you have to engage with families, children, law enforcement agencies, mental health agencies a little bit differently than you would as a peace officer. There's a lot more diagnosis specific documentation that you have to follow, and you have to be very, very meticulous and chronologically on point. And those are strategies and skills that I've had to teach my team and work with them on guiding them through. Anyway, it's actually been a pretty good journey, this transition. And when I look at the outcome and the circumstances right now, I definitely feel like those steps were ordered. Everything happens for a reason. I could truly say that. Now, me doubling back and moving back into content creating, well, it's been strategic because I didn't want to get started while I'm in transition trying to get stabilized. Um, and now, of course, I'm working on another project which I finally finished and it's going through the copywriting stages right now. So, you know what I mean? So at this point, um, I wanted to double back on my original intention for content creating because for me, when I went through a really, really trying time in my life, I believe I was in my 20s, early 20s, and I went from being a real smooth dude, just playing a game of life as an average 21 or 22 year old male would do, if you can imagine, right? Coming from where I'm coming from, to someone who became completely out of touch with um, that status in life. Nothing felt ordered anymore. Nothing felt aligned. I started feeling truly like I didn't know who I was anymore. And I went through a very deep rooted um, detachment stage, emotionally, mentally. I really felt out of place. Um, One of the things that I tell myself all the time now, beyond that, and I feel blessed, is that I couldn't pretend anymore. And what does that mean? I mean, we all have a staple personality or this stabilized self image. Well, that didn't work for me anymore. Nope, didn't work anymore. And the longer I tried to hold on to it, the harder things began to be in terms of feeling stable. All right. The type of work that I do, the type of social services and mental health work that I've been exposed to years before, um, years in the making, from 2001 up until now, helped me realize that the clinical reality says that I had um, mental health disorders, and that I was not stable. Just take that in for a second. And there are several routes you can take to be able to try to understand that. One of the routes that a lot of people take is religion. And during my first try in doing video content, um, I tried to tread lightly with religion because of my experience with religion. Um, it just wasn't quite right. I had my experience in the church early on, not consistently, but enough to be able to observe religion versus behavior. And when I think back in 94, I would go to the mosque with a buddy of mine. I know I've said this story before, but these are really significant points along my journey of becoming more aware, more self-aware. If I'd say that, and becoming more self-aware. Becoming more self-aware has everything to do with going through a, going through your emotional content. Just imagine this. You have an emotional folder or binder that starts from the time you exited your mom's womb all the way up to your current biological age, right? So when you reach the current age that you are right now, it's either um, you feel everything that's in that folder, or you don't feel nothing. Feeling nothing, you're probably a sociopath. Feeling everything, it means that emotional folder is part of your spiritual body. Excuse me, I gotta go get my charger. I am back. Where was I at? So, your emotional folder, um, your emotional folder is part of your spirit body. And your spirit body is your Akashic records. Most of us are unaware of this, but your Akashic records are associated with your emotional memory. And what do I mean by that? I'm just going to pause for a second because I know some of you are getting this. Now, you can remember early experiences in your life. So just say for me, I'm in my 40s, right? I can still remember experiences when I was 3, 4 years old. I believe 2, if I'm not mistaken. I think I had a conversation with my mom before she transitioned, and we were talking about a particular situation. She was like, I can't believe you remember that. So we have Akashic records. So when those Akashic records open up, they don't open up, well, they're not opening up at this point in our life intentionally. They open up circumstantially. Why is that? Because most of us think we're living a conscious and aware life, but we're not. We're living an unconscious and impulsive life. Because if I'm wrong, people wouldn't be engaging in copycat behavior. They wouldn't be engaging in repeating old cycles. The same type of relationships, the same type of outcomes, just a different body, a different person, same situation. So all of us have within our spirit body or spiritual aspect of the self um, emotional folders. And this is important as I go back to talking about, my early part of the journey of self-realization, right? And that was it's been a hell of a journey. It's still a journey. Um, is learning how to sit still when your emotional content begins to speak to you. See, our emotional content has been speaking to us for the longest. It's just that we move like programs. We move like clones, right? And that doesn't have anything to do with our relationship with Source. That's ongoing. That's infinite. And we'll talk about that in other videos. But what I realized, what was going on at the time where I collapsed, like socially and all this other stuff, is because 2 things. My emotional content was well overdue for me to do a review. Let me say this again. It was well overdue for a review of my emotional folder and content because those things began to collide, fall apart, and I was compelled to deal with them. You know the old statement, sit down. You need to go somewhere and sit down. And that's exactly what my spirit body began to do, sit me down. Like, you're not this person, but we're going to double back and look at what drew you to where you are right now in life. In other words, the acting game was over. It was time for what people call ego death. And we'll talk about that in other videos too. But right now, part of me reintroducing and re-engaging in content overall is because I want to create content in a way where when I was going through that phase along my journey, and gradually that type of guidance I was drew to, but the pain and the discomfort and the stagnation that came about, I wish I would have had somebody that was able to sit me down and say, hey, man, this is what's happening with you right now, right? On a series of, consultations. This is what's going on. I see so many young people going through this right now. I'm older, I'm in my 40s, so I look at them as young people. But I also see older people, my age and even older, going through this. A lot of them are on the streets, homeless, talking to themselves, unable to, keep up with, their appearances. And, some of them are very distraught. Some of them are just in their own world. I still feel a little bit uncomfortable and weird around that because I know that that was the next level for me. And when I say my phases through religion, I learned a lot about um, why we don't pay attention to our emotional content, why we don't double back and, walk through our Akashic records. When we walk through our Akashic records, when we walk through our emotional folder and look back, no, we don't look back to um, relive everything. We look back to extract the wisdom, the understanding of, circumstances in our life that demanded a response. And in fact, we made some responses. Some of those responses were erroneous, and some of the responses were very on point because we were able to move beyond certain situations, right? Now, looking at it from that perspective, when our Akashic records are open, they're not opening up. They haven't been, how can I say this? Look at your Akashic records opening up as the Bible and the Quran tells us to look forward to the day of resurrection, the day of decision, um, the day of the opening book of your life. We have to stop looking at it as a future engagement or a future circumstance. What I'm actually really understanding now is that when you want to look at life or resurrection, Armageddon, um, the hereafter as a future event, looking at things from an external perspective, including the God concept, if you look at these things as both future tense and then from an external perspective, it's a manipulative thing for people to have done because your hereafter is every day. Your day of resurrection, your day of decision, your opening records, all this is happening right now. And what does that mean? You have every opportunity to face things, understand why they happen, and bid these things a farewell because our experiences have built us up to be a certain way. We all have different tolerances. We all have different um, goal states in terms of how we respond to certain things. We all have certain endurances. But on top of all that, we all have certain gifts. You can't properly grasp and operate in your gifts also until you deal with your emotional content. So with all that being said, to me, this is just an introduction to the type of things I want to talk about in the video creation um, process as I resume. This is what I do. This is what I do in my quiet time. This is what I do in my personal contemplative time. It ain't no fake in that. I love to study. I love to contemplate. I like to be in a state of gratitude. Anytime I'm in a state where I have to be offensive, engage in conflict, or just opposite, constructive and or um, executive energy, if I have to be stagnant, I would prefer not to deal with um, people that move where it triggers me to be stagnant. This whole journey is about us getting it, right? And the only way we're going to get it is if we get it from within, right? Your perceptions, your understanding, your grasp of this particular scene, reality of the scene or tangible reality, all of that is going to have to do with you going within. All right. So with that being said, peace, peace. See you soon.